Albert?
I'll give it a try. Camille Sennegon.
You nailed it. Perfect.
Thank you. Pretty sure I didn't, but thanks. Thanks anyway.
Yeah, so welcome to the show.
Welcome.
So thank you for welcoming me to this show this week. It's a pleasure.
So you are obviously from France by the accent.
Yeah, as you can hear, I am.
And you are also a journeyman smith from the ABS, the American Bladesmith Society.
Yeah, exactly.
How long has that been, and how did you come up with the idea to join?
Well, I'm 21 years old, and I've been making knives since I'm 10 or 11, I think. And at the time, all the knife makers that were inspiring me were all mastersmiths or journeymen, so it was natural for me. I wanted to become a part of the ABS, so I joined pretty early, I think, maybe at 14 years old, and then I passed my journeyman smith nearly 2 years ago in Atlanta, so I went there just to show my knives, and I ended up exhibiting there, and it was my first show ever, which is kinda funny, because it was the biggest in the world.
Yeah.
And all that happened kinda by accident, so it has been such a good adventure. I learned a lot from that, and meeting new people from around the world is pretty amazing.
So that was 2 years ago, and how long does it take until you can go for the Mastersmith, or?
Well, good question. So I'm currently working toward my Mastersmith. So I want to test in June, so in Atlanta again. But as you know, things never go as planned. So I will cross my fingers, because it's such a lot of work, and I have custom orders to make, I have the shows to attend, and working for the Mastersmith aside of that is pretty tedious, because everything needs to be perfect, and I spent like 100 hours on blades that I just threw away because they were not good enough. But that's the game.
Yeah. So you can apply as soon as you finish the knives. Like, what's the criteria for the knives that you need to present? You just need to show up with those knives to present them, and you can apply for the Mastersmith then?
Yeah, so you have to wait 3 years after subscribing to the ABS to be able to pass the Journeyman Smith test. And once you do that, you have to wait 2 more years. So I have to present 5 knives for the master. 1 dagger with a Damascus blade. The handle needs to be fluted with wire inlays. And I have to present 4 other knives. And 2 of them have to be like at least 150mm blades. But you can make them out of monosteel if you want. There is no requirement for that, actually. So they don't want necessarily... They don't want to see very, very complicated works if it's not well made. If you make something very simple but perfect, it's good. If you make crazy work, it needs to be perfect too. So if you add difficulty, you need to be able to make it as nice as possible.
So it's better a simple blade and very clean.
Yeah, exactly.
Any extras you add to it could go against your score.
Yeah, exactly. Even if it's nice to always push the boundaries, they won't care. If it's not perfect and you added something you don't master, it's not good.
Have you done any of those?
Yes,
or
so
are they still need to be finished?
The dagger is the most difficult blade to make. So I have the chance to know a few mastersmiths, and in France we have one, which is Jean-Louis Régel, and there are 2 in Belgium, so Véronique Laurent and Samuel Lurquin. So I asked them a bunch of questions, and I showed them my dagger blade. And they give very good tips for people like me. So they told me, start with the dagger, because if you can't make that blade, no need to make the other ones. You can make 4 perfect knives, but if the dagger is not good, don't even try it, take your time. So I started with the dagger, and I decided to make a 4-bar multi-bar blade. And trust me, this is horrible to make.
Really hard. Where do you think most people struggle with these daggers? Is it the actual design and the the symmetry with it, or are there some technicalities that are extremely difficult?
I think a dagger is not to be thought about like a knife. It's more, for me at least, it's more like something you are sculpting. Which, yeah, of course, the symmetry is very difficult, but you have, for me at least, I had to think a lot about it to build processes and not make things harder than they already are. So you need to be very methodical on everything. For example, when you treat a hidden tang knife, if the tang, while quenching, just bend towards the edge or towards the spine of the handle, nobody cares. But on a dagger, it will mess up everything. So you need to account for that and things like this that we don't think about when we make other kind of knives. So it's a mental gymnastic, you know. You have to see it another way, and it's I'm doing the master because I want to get way better than I am today in a short amount of time. And since the bar is so high, even if I fail, I will be a lot better than 6 months before, you know. And that's the goal.
It requires you pushing the boundary, pushing the line, pushing yourself.
Oh, yeah. Yes, and it teaches you patience.
Like knife making does to everybody. You need to be patient. Yeah. I'm asking actually about the dagger just because I saw Will Stelter's attempt on going to be a mastersmith, and his dagger, if I remember correctly, was refused just because the flutes were not spirally on the handle, but they were straight flutes, and they said it doesn't count as flutes.
Quiet like that. So what happened is that he did the wire inlay, but a flute, the flute is really something you make with the file. You know, it's a radius, hollow radius. And he did not have that, and that's why they refused the dagger. But you can make straight flutes, and it's actually a lot harder than spiral ones.
Oh wow! It's so nice to hear a explanation from a person who is actually going to do the same test. Yeah, really, really interesting.
Because I started the first blade in July, I think, and that attempt failed. Then I started again. I broke the blade because I did some weird things with the heat treat, maybe. Then I started another time, and I had delamination between some of the bars, which I still, I'm not sure why. And this time, I think it's the one, I've nearly finished the blade, and I'm starting the guard and the handle part. But doing that out of multi-bar is horrible, honestly, because you need to make everything perfectly symmetrical. And the fish mouth weld, this is a very difficult part, so I had to test a lot of things to make it happen correctly.
Is that a requirement, or because you want to make the pattern flow better? It's not a requirement to make something very, very fancy like a multi-bar or a mosaic, but the goal of the mastersmith is to push people to make the best work they can. So I think it's kinda too bad to make something very simple. But I did a fish mouth weld because otherwise the bars wouldn't flow well and wouldn't follow the shape of the tip. And as I said, because it needs to be symmetrical, I needed to have all the bars the same width on the width of the blade. So, and also everything needs to be twisted perfectly the same. And since the grind is in the middle of the blade, and I did 4 bars, the middle bar needs to be perfectly straight too. So you have to forge very close to the final shape. I left like 0.5 millimeter on each side after the forging,
because if you leave too much, you will grind the bars, and the two bars of the edge will be way thinner than the middle ones, and it will show a lot.
I can imagine if you have to make the dagger first and then 4 knives after that. I know that I would, by the time I finish the 4 knives afterwards,